Like, don't you think people might be worried about publishing a poll now because they don't know if the president is going to try to sue them in court?
No, absolutely not, because how is he intimidating anyone?
By threatening to sue you if he doesn't like your poll?
Well, that's what the left has done continually.
Where would you go for your opinion about your heart troubles, the 5 expert doctors or the fact checkers at the New York Times?
Probably the 5 expert doctors.
Yeah.
But the New York Times aren't recommending me medical treatments, but they
Except
are
in
on
the case of
community
COVID,
notes.
yeah.
Except for what?
Except in the case of COVID, I think there was a whole bunch of fact-checking that was going on in the New York Times when it came to
They were fact-checking claims, but generally it was the CDC and the NIH, or you could listen to Joe Rogan.
The Trump administration is engaging in censorship. Move.
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable.
Stephen? And why don't you decide among yourselves who wants to go? The Trump administration is engaging in censorship. I'll let you begin.
Silly, and then a real example, I think it's very silly that I think the AP has now been refused like White House credentials because they won't call it the Gulf of America instead of the Gulf of Mexico. I think that's kind of ridiculous. For an actual, like a really troubling thing, aside from all the other court cases that Trump was involved in, the one right now where he's suing Seltzer because he didn't like her poll, I think is one of the most egregious breaches of freedom of speech in the United States. I think that's an insane thing that a president would sue a pollster because he didn't like the poll.
Well, he's not suing because he didn't like the poll. He finds that he has proof, substantial proof, to take it to court to determine the fact that things were manipulated.
He has no proof of that.
Well, we don't know until it gets to the court system and we find out.
That's a nice excuse, but then how do you differentiate between that versus him just weaponizing his power as president and the courts to intimidate people to create a chilling effect on speech in America? Like, don't you think people might be worried about publishing a poll now because they don't know if the president is going to try to sue them in court?
No, absolutely not, because how is he intimidating anyone?
By threatening to sue you if he doesn't like your poll?
Well, that's what the left has done continually.
Can you name one example of the president, of a Democratic president, or even lawmakers suing a pollster because they don't like the poll?
No, it's not because he doesn't like the poll. It's because he believes he has the facts proving that it's unsubstantiated.
Yeah, but none of that has been presented to the American public. None of that is in the complaint. Like, there's no evidence of that whatsoever that we can see. So
you don't play your cards and show them, do you?
Well, in this case, I think you probably would owe it to the American people to, because otherwise it looks like, do you agree that a reasonable person could look at it and go, wow, that's kind of scary that the president is suing a pollster because he doesn't like the poll?
Well, it's not because he doesn't like the poll. That's not the truth. The truth is that he's suing for substantiated reasons. Otherwise, he wouldn't waste his time.
Well, but didn't he waste his time with 62 other court cases about election fraud in 2021? And hasn't he wasted his time with a whole bunch of other court cases that he eventually lost as well?
I don't know about that, but I know that the left has wasted their time as well, going after Trump for a million things.
But they didn't waste their time there. They got convictions in the state of New York. They probably would have they got federal indictments for Mar-a-Lago and for the Gen 6 stuff. I mean, was that a waste of time?
Absolutely, if it didn't take them to substantiate the truth.
Because
Because
none of
this was proven in court.
Because they got to dismiss all the cases.
Well, no, because the left was controlling the judicial system completely.
But they weren't. These were Trump appointees.
But they weren't Trump appointees.
Okay. So when Trump does it, it's always okay. Trump can literally do anything, and there's always going to be like, what if it came out? So what if it came out for this Iowa case that they go to court and Trump has no evidence? Would you say, okay, that was a really scary abuse of power for him to sue somebody for no reason?
Absolutely,
Okay.
wholeheartedly. You can't argue the truth.
Okay.
All right. Could you come forward? I'm going to give you a chance to ask each person one question.
Because Trump has lots of power, do you think sometimes he's a little bit of an aggressor and tries to scare people?
I think claiming that he has lots of power is perceptive. How do you find that he's dictatorial? They call him a dictator. They call him a Nazi. I mean, where do you get this from? I don't understand where people can make these claims, and then the results always end up showing the truth, which is not true.
Okay. We have a question for Stephen?
Not so much. Can I?
Yeah, you can. Yes.
Okay. So it's just, you don't think he tries to intimidate? Like, part of his play is to intimidate sometimes people.
I don't find, because of my personality, I don't find it as intimidation. There's strategies used to make things happen. If people, snowflakes get offended with everything that someone says, and that's the problem we have in society, we're talking about censorship. Oh, I don't like what he said. It offended me. Oh, my God, we need to stop that.
Do you have a question for Destiny?
No, actually, no, I don't.
Okay, good. Reset to the neutral, everybody. Next claim, alternative media is a better way to understand what's actually happening than corporate media. Move.
But we record when we deal with reporters. It's called fake news, and we solve a lot of problems.
You are fake news.
Sir.
CNN is fake news. Don't talk to me.
I'll let you four decide among yourselves, and you three decide among yourselves who's going to go. Take a minute. Here we are yet again with you two. I will give you first say, sir.
Thank goodness for alternative media. I've always had an innate feeling that I've been lied to by the propaganda on the major, and look, now it's finally coming to a T that we have independents that are clearly independent, and it can get to a future where the independents change as well, because there's whoever answers to the higher paying authority, then it's going to change. But for now, we absolutely are hearing every side of the story, thankfully.
Yeah, I think that in the age of alternative media, I think that we probably have the lowest level of information voter that we've ever had in the history of the country. I think that having some type of editorial control over what's important to show, why is it important, how do we contextualize it, is more important than people who are driven by their own individual agendas or ideologies that are totally obscured from the public. And I feel people are usually dishonest about them when they say, who's driving them or who's giving them money or what they're actually reporting on.
So now you're talking about censorship.
No? I'm not saying we should censor. I'm just saying right now the state of alternative media, I think, has misinformed people probably more than anything else.
So how would you control that?
I don't know how you control it. I'm just saying that right now it's in a really bad state. I probably would pass laws against it. So I think there are some things I would regulate, yeah.
Help me understand why is it out of control and why you would regulate any of it?
Because right now I think there are a lot of bad actors, like people that deliberately lie and misrepresent to the public in order to make a lot of money, and I think it is destroying our democracy. I think it's probably the worst issue that we face right now in the United States.
Well, that's your belief, as everyone has their belief, but how would you substantiate that?
By taking a look at the factual record over literally anything and seeing how people report on it or talk about it.
But isn't it great that we live in a world now that people can say whatever they think, and then you allow the people to decide, not have someone decide for you behind the scenes?
Yeah, we would never say that with literally any other thing ever. We only say it for media because people don't like to decide. They like to be told what makes them feel good.
Well, no, media is communication. It's always been about what makes you feel good, and that's the psychological aspect of it, and that's how you control people.
Sure,
but
but
the
like
fact that people are saying whatever they want.
We're out of time. I'll give you the last word.
Well, yeah, I'm actually curious. I was going to ask two quick questions. Sure. I'm just curious. One, can you think of a couple lies that you feel like CNN or MSNBC have told over the past 5 or 6 years that you feel like are really egregious?
Well, the very first one, when they first came out and said that Trump is calling Latinos, criminals and rapists. I was, really? Well, let me take a look at let me see that. And
yeah,
said,
and then real quick, and then for the second
Mexico
one, yeah.
is calling us, is sending us their rapists. Clearly not what they said. So, boom, right off the bat, a lie.
Sure, and then a second lie. Can you think of any random lies over the past 5 years?
I could tell you it's my perception, so I
Okay,
can't
sure.
tell you if it's truth or lie, but I
Okay.
feel like I've constantly been lied to, so I don't believe any of it.
Sure. Then the only other question I would have is, can you think of a single lie that Fox News has told over the past 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, let's think. About the voter fraud, I heard a few things that were I thought were truth, and then I found out that they were lies. So I was like, well, you know what? I lost faith in all of these people. Let me stick to the independent media, which is great.
Okay. All right, I'm going to substitute Brett in. I'll give you 3 minutes. Go.
I'm really suspicious of gatekeepers, so I think more channels of information the better. There's no such thing as an inerrant source of information. It's always going to be riddled with error. It's upon the consumer as to whether or not they can distinguish between this is factual, less factual, complete and utter BS. But I wouldn't hand over one's critical faculties to some government bureaucracy who decides to regulate this or that channel of information. The more channels of information that people can choose from, the better. And if they're all disagreeing one with another, then perhaps you're able to distinguish which of them are lying and which are telling the truth. I don't know why a corporate media or a mainstream media would be a more reliable channel of information or channel of reliable information than a whole bunch of smaller channels.
I can't think of anything that you would ever learn or help somebody learn something or teach somebody something where you would ever say that like, oh, like I'm having trouble with my physics homework, my math homework, learning how to do jujitsu, whatever, and you go, oh, well, try opening these 1,000 books and choosing which one you think is the best, or open these 15,000 YouTube videos and go through which one is the best. I think that having authority people or well-educated or well-read and good teaching people is always like really essential for helping people learn things. I think this is true of basically every single aspect of our lives that we inhabit. I don't think there's ever a time where somebody comes to somebody who's confused and then you just open in front of them like 15,000 different sources and have them go through with it. But for some reason, when it comes to media, people are under this weird assumption that if there's 10,000 dueling, media channels, somehow the truth is going to come out. There's just absolutely no empirical reason to believe that case over the past 5 or 10 years when, again, voter literacy over a litany of topics is probably at an all-time low right now in the United States. Like it seems like that, whatever that experiment was about having the open dueling alternative media, it has failed miserably and catastrophically.
That's not the circumstance we actually find ourselves in. When you have all of this proliferation of different channels of information, they do tend to converge, at least on what's happening. So you can look at, for example, recent aircraft crashes that have happened in the United States. The fact that they agreed these aircraft crashes did happen means that a certain amount of information is getting out. Now, whether or not the cause of those aircraft crashes can be converged upon, different media sources say different things about what the likely cause was going to be, is a separate issue. But I don't see that it's problematic for the fact, it's problematic in learning to have multiple sources of information. It's just like having multiple universities out there. It's not like you can't choose one based upon certain criteria that you think is good. The existence of a multiplicity of universities doesn't destroy the idea that you can pick one and it might be reliable or pick another.
Sure, but universities have like a whole peer review process. Like that's like one of the most hardcore, stringent examples of editorial control over information. When you look at a journal and you see what's published there, it's not just whoever decides to write a thing and is now like the lead publisher because he's got the funniest opinion. It's usually a whole process that a bunch of other reviewers go through to make sure that a process has been followed correctly, that the results are replicable, that there's like a reason for it.
Everyone, many people here will be more expert than I am on the perverted way in which peer-reviewed journals happen to have evolved and the way in which the entire process has now been destroyed in terms of the credibility of many of these peer-reviewed journals, simply due to the fact that there are vested interests in what gets published, who publishes it, who reads it, who pays for it, and so on and so forth. The same may very well be true with large media organisations.
Yeah, that can be an opinion that people can have, but empirically that's like, the fact that you even have that opinion, I feel like establishes how corrupting like alternative media has been. Like there have not been any of these alternative institutions that have sprung up to do good research in science or medicine or technology. Like all of these huge pushes in technology, all of these huge pushes in pharmaceutical research, all of this has come through this process. Like people can critique it, and I think there are criticisms that are fair to levy at it, but to say that the process is bad or this alternative media process is better when that hasn't produced anything, I mean, we can go through specific topics, but like on anything, I think that the general knowledge of like an American has decreased substantially over the past several years as a result of this alternative media environment. But
all right, let's do this. Everybody go back to the neutral, new claim. Community Notes on X is more trustworthy than the New York Times fact checkers. Move. Okay, James, you go. And then David, you go. You have 3 minutes. I'll let you go first.
There's still journalistic standards that need to be met for these New York Times fact checkers, whereas X is purely democratic, and who's voting on this depends on who sees it in the first place, meaning that we can't ever have like a totally perfect, in either case, which is why I'm not on absolutely disagree, we can't have a totally perfect idea of what's true or false, but we're more likely to be closer to the truth when we have a New York Times fact checker rather than Community Notes.
Okay, I understand what your point is, but I think the good part about it being democratic is that it's not one person or one group's incentive, because that's what we have to look at in organized groups. For example, New York Times published that article about Justin Baldoni, and now we find out that they had incentives to do that through the person that Blake and Ryan Reynolds were suing, Justin Baldoni. So they published this entire thing, and that was a display of their power and celebrity to get such a revered institution as the New York Times to literally put out a hit piece about somebody that was wrought with misinformation and facts that they didn't check. So it's like, I think it depends, because obviously someone within that publication had the incentive to put out a hit piece about somebody. And if that same thing was put out on community notes, the large swath of people on the internet would be able to dissect that that wasn't true in minutes, probably. So I think there's definitely sometimes that I would trust a journal more so, but recently I've lost a lot of faith.
Okay. First off, I don't know anything about Joey Baldani. I don't know what's going on with that. I think that it's bad if there were to be a reason, like they were bribed to put out a hit piece. I don't think that celebrity drama is really that important. I do believe that the New York Times, if they put that out, that should be a blow to their credibility. However, I don't think that generally for politics that they would be bribed. I don't think that would be comparable to their ability to be trusted in politics.
Well, let's say not even a bribe, maybe there was political incentive. For example, the thing about the Justin Baldoni is like a Me Too allegation, so it's greater than just like celebrity, it's about sexual assault.
I also know, I have never even heard of Justin Baldoni.
Yeah. So
I have literally no idea who that is.
Falsely accused of sexual harassment while working on a film, and the film was being stolen from him at the time. So essentially what happened is the New York Times was complicit in putting out a hit piece about him that was disproven so quickly. And it was obvious that it was based on the relationship that they had. It was Ronan Farrow who put it out, who had a relationship with Taylor Swift. It's just when we look at these institutions, I think what's happened in the last few years is people have, it's been like sunlight shining on a lot of things that we had faith in, or people cared about celebrities more back in the day, or people trusted the media more. So we're kind of in this phase where I'm not gonna say it's all gonna get better for sure, it's gonna be messy now, but we're kind of seeing behind the curtain. We're getting to see behind the curtain in a lot of different ways.
I'll give you last word because we're out of time. Go ahead.
Okay, so once again, I don't believe that like this celebrity issue, I don't know much about it. It seems very complicated if you're saying like this person was with this person was. I think that that's not really an institutional issue. That's more of just, well, that was a mess and it got screwed up. So yeah, I think their credibility should take a hit for that, but I don't think that that's comparable to politics. I mean, you could say that they might have incentive to publish something, but once again, like when they publish something about politics, if they publish something totally wrong, like there's the reason why they're the mainstream media and why they're not an alternative media source, and it's because they're held accountable by the rest of the journalism community.
All right, Brett, come forward. You come forward, please. And you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk is really mad that he's getting community noted a lot. So he just said that he might redo how they work. So the fact that we don't even have that much, I don't know how much insight we'll have to the process is makes it questionable. And then also, I feel like X is probably the most prone platform to, or the platform that's the most prone to spreading misinformation right now. And there's like, it's abundant and pervasive, and it seems like community notes just aren't really helping with that. I think people like community notes because they see something, they're like, oh, it's good that this thing got fact-checked, but that's not good. That's like a corrective measure. It would have been better if the thing just wouldn't have been viewed at all, so.
I think corrective measures the right word. Trustworthiness is a really poor epistemic standard. What we want is a system of error correction. And so fact-checking is supposed to be a system of error correction of some kind. Now, if you have a single authoritative body, supposedly or purportedly authoritative body, like the New York Times, fact-checking stuff, you have this one voice, supposedly expert, trying to fact-check any number of things across any number of topics. The wonderful thing about community notes, from my experience, is that people will only get involved in the discussion, the thing they want a community note, when they are interested in that particular topic, and a debate will go on until such time as something rises to the top or falls to the bottom, as you might think, about that particular issue. If it's scientific, a whole bunch of science nerds will get together and debate the issue about whether... Now, that's not to say that community notes won't produce error from time to time. It will, but at least it is some form of error correction better than what Twitter had previously, which was this designated set of experts which were supposed to be across all the different subject areas. Now, if you're interested in politics, get involved in the political community notes. If you're interested in history, get involved in that community note, and so on and so forth. So different experts, or at least people who are interested in that area, are going to get involved in certain discussions. But as you say, there's going to be this problem of when people have a vested interest or when people have a certain strong political ideology, that might be a different kind of bias and political note that is going to be operating compared to someone who's community noting a scientific fact, let's say.
Let's say you had a heart problem and you had to choose between 5 doctors who were arguing amongst themselves what the best course of treatment was for you, or 50 people who were just interested in the topic. Whose advice would you rather take?
Obviously the doctors.
So why does an authoritative body matter there, but it doesn't for like journalism?
Because there you actually have a set of experts that you want to go to who have expertise. But in the case of Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
You don't think for like journalism or understanding like domestic or international issues, there can't be like expertise people?
I think journalists are especially poorly placed to fact check things outside of a very narrow area of expertise called journalism. But as soon as they start fact checking things like during COVID, suddenly they're all medical experts. When they're fact checking things in the economy, suddenly they're all like economic experts. I think journalists are really unreliable interlocutors when it comes to almost everything outside of journalism.
Okay. I feel like these would just rest on empirical claims, because on both of those standards I would just completely and utterly disagree. I think that the non-journalist people spread more COVID misinformation that probably the majority of people here might even believe to this day, and that's just purely on non-experts deciding to offer up their opinion for political reasons. And that information that'll never be corrected or community noted out of existence.
Do you guys want 3 more minutes to carry this on or no?
I just had one more point, which is, couldn't I throw back to you, where would you go for your opinion about your heart troubles, the 5 expert doctors or the fact checkers at the New York Times?
Probably the 5 expert doctors.
Yeah.
But the New York Times aren't recommending me medical treatments, but they
Except
are
in
on
the case of
community
COVID,
notes.
yeah.
Except for what?
Except in the case of COVID, I think there was a whole bunch of fact-checking that was going on in the New York Times when it came to
They were
what we
fact-checking
should
claims,
do.
but generally it was the CDC and the NIH, or you could listen to Joe Rogan. I mean, that was the...
Right, yeah.
Okay.